afternoon, morning, evening, whenever you're listening to this. Welcome to this episode of Let's Talk Common Sense with me, Mike Omni. Listen, I've been trying to say that for like 4 times. I'm just not going to do it again. So what you see is what you get. This podcast is brought to you by the Common Sense Network, where we try and expose people to different perspectives. We create online and offline spaces for people who disagree with each other to learn from each other. It's going to be an interesting one today. It's a special episode because of something that you may have guessed already based on the title. Just to put it out there, listen, this is not clickbait. We really did have a conversation with Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. I will tell you all about it in a minute. But before we do that, let's meet our special guest today. I'm talking today with Mubarak Tairu, who is one of our editors at the Common Sense Network. Hey Mubarak, how you doing?
Hello Mike, thank you for having me on Let's Talk Common Sense.
Am I right in thinking this is your first podcast?
Yes, this is actually my first podcast.
And your voice is already deeper. So if you just move the mic a bit closer to your mouth, that would be great. But how are you doing? What's up? What have you been working on?
I'm great, thank you. So what I do currently with the Common Sense Network is I'm in charge of the editor's desk. What the editor's desk is we dissect and break down topical issues within the news and look at both sides of the argument.
Yeah,
with the editor-in-chief.
I mean, we haven't had consistency with episodes. I'm not here to roast you. I think you're thinking, what? It's my first podcast and already you're screaming. We haven't been as consistent as we possibly can be with those episodes, but
yeah.
Am I right in thinking some are coming out soon? We're trying to get back on top of things.
Oh yeah, definitely. We hit a curveball, I would say.
Why is your voice so deep?
with coronavirus.
Your voice is just really, really deep. Can we just have your voice?
This is my voice.
Okay, go ahead. This thing happens, folks. So every single time we do a podcast, I have a chat off air with people. They're like, "Yeah, it's been a great week." The minute I go, "Welcome," they go, "Well, it's been a lovely week, and I'm so pleased to be here." Sorry, you were saying.
Yeah, so we hit a curveball primarily with coronavirus, but now we're getting on top of things now as things all are easing. So fortunately, we'll be back and we'll be a lot more consistent going forward with our video content for the YouTube channel.
You sound like a politician. He's just trying to get the media off his back. But you are right. We've got this wonderful series called Editor's Desk over on YouTube where we break down the news, different interesting topics around the world in something like 5 minutes or so. So go ahead. That's the Common Sense Network on YouTube. Subscribe, be a part of that. Feel more confident about your week. Now, this week is a special podcast. Like I said, we're not going to go into the top stories as much. I mean, we know lockdown's has been relaxed, and now social distancing measures have moved from 2 meters to 1 meter. It was interesting to see one of the police chiefs tweeting. It was quite interesting because he was tweeting like one of those kids that had done an experiment and then found out something really obvious. When a kid comes and goes, "I put ice in the sun and it melted, so I've proven that ice melts in the sun." He came and he was like, "What I've learned today is that drunk people won't social distance." Well, yeah, good one, mate. That's what they're paying you for, right? Which is quite interesting. But away from all of that, we want to make this podcast episode all about the power of social media. Well, not social media. The power of celebrities who use social media for social change. Just to tell you what you probably got onto this podcast to hear, just last week on Friday, I was one of 3 young leaders from around the Commonwealth invited by the Queen's Commonwealth Trust to have a conversation with Prince Harry and Meghan Markle about justice, fairness, and equality. It's quite odd, actually, how it happened, because I was basically experiencing burnout, quite frankly, from last month. I spoke on so many panels about Black Lives Matter, and it actually got to a stage where I was kind of like, oh gosh, I'm done with like just all this conversation. Then I get a message from the Queen's Commonwealth Trust. They're partners of ours at the Common Sense Network, and they said, is that the ice cream van? This is the perks of recording at home. And they said to me, Mike, are you free on this particular date? Now, me being me, I was actually going to say, no, like I'm just tired, like I'm having burnout. But the part of me said, well, no, like yeah, why not? Like, let's see what's up. So literally I just said, yeah, why not? Like, I'm free. And then she told me, this is Chloe, who's wonderful, just a superstar at QCT. And she said, well, I'll confirm the details with you later. So I thought nothing of it. I thought it would probably be like some conversation somewhere that they don't have the full details of it yet or whatever. Then she messages me and she's like, I'm happy to confirm it's a conversation with Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. And I said, I'm free. I said, you know what, Chloe? I am suddenly free. I mean, my day was super clogged up, but now it's totally free. So we got invited onto a Zoom call. It was quite interesting, actually, because we got on the Zoom call and we were meant to arrive 30 minutes before the Duke and the Duchess of Sussex were meant to arrive, right? And I got on the Zoom call and immediately they joined. So we were all like, what's going on? They were like, oh, sorry, are you guys not expecting us now? So they left and they came back. But all in all, it was a wonderful conversation about justice, fairness. I was so shocked to see how up for it Meghan Markle was and Prince Harry was. I thought they would be like, oh yes, it's very bad. Black Lives Matter is bad. Sorry, Black Lives Matter is important and racism is bad. But you could watch it, by the way, if you go on YouTube and just type in Queen's Commonwealth Trust or just whatever. They really gave it some, and I was really shocked by that. Were you shocked watching that?
No, I thought it was really great to see, actually, to be honest. I thought the discussion was very inspiring. Firstly, I've watched the video.
You sound inspiring.
Oh, I definitely feel inspired. I think it may not come across in my voice.
Are you still having your podcast moment?
Yes. These are nerves, people. These are nerves. But I was definitely inspired from the conversation, because I feel sometimes, especially with sort of discourse and conversations, it's just sort of left at the table and that's it. I feel from this now there is a possible action that might come about from it as well, especially with high profile figures like Prince Harry and
I was
Michael.
really, like you, I was quite shocked. I thought it would be one of those conversations you have with important people who obviously are very close to the subject matter. For instance, one of the major things I was wondering is, will they address empire and colonialism? And literally the first thing that I think Meghan, her name's actually, you had to call her mom. I was asked to call her mom and him sir. But one of the first things she says was like, colonialism. And I was like, oh gosh, like she's on smoke. Like she's trying to have that conversation. She's not doing the, yes, it was bad and we must stop. Yeah. So, did that shock you that they were so willing to talk about colonialism and the UK's colonial past?
Oh, definitely. I feel topics around, say, colonialism and issues around the UK's past are sometimes sugar-coated. I feel from sort of both an educational standpoint and sort of like a political standpoint as well. Yeah. It's very much sugar-coated to make it seem politically correct. And I feel that from the discussion, it was very much blunt and how do we resolve these issues? So yeah, definitely inspired. Although my voice may not sound that way, but I'm definitely inspired and raring to go.
No, it was good. And the UK actually needs to reckon with colonialism. Otherwise, we just will never heal. And it's one thing I've often said to, like, when I'm having chats with friends, we can talk all the talk about growth and reconciliation and racial harmony, but we have to address the past. Colonialism happened. The UK went around the world and they exported their version of democracy, even as recently as the Iraq War. Let's keep it fresh. We went around exporting our specific brand of democracy. It's created externalities around the world. Some countries are still recovering today. We can't just wince at that and move on or squint, and just try to see it differently. No, we have to address it and talk about it. And I think seeing Meghan Markle so willing to talk about it, for me, was nice, because it showed that people in positions of power who are close to the subject matter are actually willing to confront some of that. But you know what, folks? It was a great conversation. Do watch it if you have time. It was great for many reasons, to be able to talk to them, to hear them say that what you're doing at the TCS Network is great. That was a lovely boost of confidence. But ultimately, we know that, like, the world's broken, the mainstream media is broken, and we need to fix it. It's nice to see other people agreeing, but we've been knowing stuff like this. But the wider question it actually opened up is about celebrity culture and how celebrities drive social change, quote unquote. Some people thought in the responses, like, why are they talking about Black Lives Matter? Like, what's Prince Harry and Meghan Markle been doing about Black Lives Matter? Why is it now they're suddenly interested?
Yeah.
And some were like, no, they need to speak about it because this is literally why they exist. They've got this massive platform. They've got to use it for good. And remember, Meghan and Harry stepped down from the royal family, from royal duties, so that they could focus on global issues. So isn't this just consistent with an arc we've seen from them already? Before we get into the whole debate and even get some of the members of the Commentators Network who've sent in their thoughts, where do you sit on this instinctively? This notion of celebrities using their platform to kind of jump on social movements.
Yeah, I feel I'm quite torn because I feel the issue is double-edged. Because firstly, if you're a celebrity and you don't speak on the matter, you're berated by the law of social media by saying your silence is deafening.
The council of social media.
Essentially that. So it's a case where if you don't speak on the matter, you're seen as, oh, you don't care about this. In reality, you may actually care about it.
Wasn't there that weird thing where, like, when something first happened, I kept on seeing people tweeting stuff like their favorite brands, like, why, oh, your silence is deafening. Like, what was that about?
Oh, so it was a response to the fact that they haven't actually made a comment or a statement on the matter. And I feel that it's difficult because once they do make a statement or comment on the matter, everyone just sort of just says, oh, well, you did this in the past, and so surely you're not actually with this movement. So it's very much double-edged, because if you do speak, you still get drawn out.
Yeah.
If you don't speak, you still get drawn out as well. But my perspective rather should be, they should use their platforms for good, and they should be allowed to speak on these issues. But if they're not, say, the right people to speak on these issues, they should platform others, the credible people that have been doing the grassroots work.
It's quite interesting you should say that, because the initial kind of people who say they should just shut up and just do nothing. I mean, there's a great article on the Commentators Network. You can read it on the TCS Network.co.uk that one of our journalists, Jire, wrote, was about, I think it's called Shut Up and Dribble. And it's about, like, some people just want their sports stars just to shut up and dribble, because when they start supporting certain social movements, especially polemic ones, it makes it hard to kind of watch and enjoy sport. For a lot of people, sport is a place they run to just go and be recreational, to have fun, to be entertained. But when they see politics bleed into that, they kind of get a sense of, whoa, hold on. And that's what we saw, obviously, with Colin Kaepernick when he took the knee. People were saying, listen, you're a football player, stop messing up, like, my enjoyment with politics, as it were. Of course, his argument is that this can't wait. I'm willing to interrupt the national anthem. Yeah. I'm willing to interrupt your enjoyment, your recreational time, to tell you something that cannot be ignored. In a similar way, this is what we saw with Marcus Rashford. Now, I'm going to rehash the story. We all know what happened. Marcus Rashford is an English striker that plays for Man United. And he put out, I guess, well, to be fair, he's been doing the work behind the scenes. But he, essentially, why we're talking about him is because he urged the UK government to reconsider their decision to not have the food voucher system or scheme run through the summer holidays. Now, when lockdown first happened, what the government did was they initiated this program, this voucher system, around March. And the whole point of that was to help low-income families feed their children when schools were closed during lockdown. To give you a bit more detail, the vouchers were were worth about £15, and about 1.3 million children in England were getting this free school meals, essentially. Now, there's been a lot of campaign when the government announced that scheme would no longer be running. As you can imagine, lots of children charities and anti-poverty, I mean, they all started campaigning about it. But one of the issues people have is, well, Marcus Rashford pipes up and writes an open letter, and the decision's reversed. The UK government actually does a U-turn. Mm-hmm. But then one of the problems people have is, well, why is Marcus Rashford now getting all the praise as though he's the only one that saved all the children? Is that a problem?
Well, I don't necessarily think it's a problem. I feel that, again, it's about platforming the others that have been working on the issue as well. I feel because Marcus Rashford has this celebrity status, it's much easier to see what he's doing, rather, say, than the other organizations that have been sort of part of that sort of fight for, say, free school meals. So yes, there should be more coverage of other organizations that are really trying to, again, make change in society, but at the same time you can't help but say that because these celebrities are so high profile, quite naturally the attention is drawn on them.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fair point you're making. I think ultimately that's kind of where I sit as well, is that, well, it's kind of the damned if you don't, damned if you do thing. If he doesn't say anything, then maybe he would have got a tweet, your silence is deafening, Marcus. Didn't you get vouchers when you were young? And if he says something, people say just that, because I've read that criticism. People saying, well, hold on a minute. You know, there's a lot of people fighting for this. How come you just come and you say something and suddenly, and it happened with Lewis Hamilton, it happened with John Boyega. People are like, John Boyega has say, like, he's the black leader. And like, well, hold on. Let's slow down. Like, love the fact that he's standing up for something he believes in, but the notion that he alone is this leader of the black community is like, no, he's an actor who showed up at a rally and gave a powerful speech. Doesn't mean he's the leader of the movement or he's been doing the work. You know what? One thing that's crazy, people need to understand. In the US, the Black Lives Matter marches happen almost every day. And they had been doing so for the past 2 years. So because we've got some high profile marches that some celebrities are going to, that's not the only marches that exist. So you must understand the frustration of campaigners where they see like some celebrities just tweet something. Everyone goes, wow, this guy's changing it. And they go, hold on a minute, he's not. He wasn't at every single march. There's a lot of marches. I recently watched a conversation with Candace Owens. I'm so sorry for saying her name. And what's his name? Mark Lamont Hill having a conversation about this. And he made a statement that he goes to a lot of Black Lives Matter movements because, quite frankly, there's a lot of them about a lot of different issues. Problem is, the mainstream media only focuses on certain marches, typically the ones where riots happen, because that fits into their narrative that black people are thugs and like to riot and stuff like that. But we shouldn't be confused. That's really not what's going on here. There's a lot more happening that we can't quite see. I guess ultimately, Marcus Rashford got the decision turned. So I mean, that's going to be a good thing, right? Let's listen to what one of our members sent in. This is a woman by the name of Siobhan who wrote an article on the Commentators Network as well, discussing, Weiss wrote an article about social media and celebrities and essentially the part they play in ensuring that social changes actually achieve their goal.
My views on celebrities using their platform for social change is I believe that they need to do it. It's a great thing for them to use their millions of followers that glean to their every word to promote something other than, their own capital gain. So I think that they need to do it. On the flip side of that, I do not think that should be the end-all be-all for social progress to be done. We shouldn't depend on celebrities to make the change that we want to see. I wrote an article about this, and my whole motive on doing that is, yes, it's great. It's awesome. More celebrities should be using their platform for this. But we shouldn't be making those moral changes because Beyonce tweeted, LeBron James tweeted. You see celebrities rallying on the front lines, donating to charities for us to make a morally decision to stop being a butthole, to call people out on their injustice.
Right. So what did you make of that?
I do echo some of the sentiments she says as well. It's not just dependent on celebrities to say this is right, this is what we should be championing, and this is what we should be sort of giving our attention to. It's both a thing where we as normal everyday civilians and people need to be championing these topical issues as well, and saying that whatever platform that we have, we need to use that to sort of talk about these issues as well, because if we look at it from a unified perspective, the more people that speak about it, the more impacts that will be had that way. Not just say celebrities saying this is what needs to be happening, and this is what's important. So it's both say we as everyday people, but also celebrities coming together and saying this is what needs to change within society in order for us to be progressive.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're right, and one of the, I guess, pushbacks people might have at that is, well, with the Marcus Rashford thing, okay, cool, kids get to eat, which is obviously very important, and that's the win. But what people might say is, well, why did it take him to do it? Why does our government only listen to rich and powerful people? Why doesn't it listen to the voice of like ordinary people? Isn't it meant to protect and serve us? Are we starting to develop this celebrity class that their voice is worth more than ours? Is it because he has millions of followers, or because he's Marcus Rashford and plays for United, and the government wants to be seen to be partnering with like someone that has social clout? I know that some people may be like, this is so obvious, but I mean, think about it for a minute. What kind of world are we living in where a footballer is who the government's looking to go, oh, well, he's cool? And I know that might seem like a very simple analysis to some people, but if we go down that idea kind of journey for a minute, I mean, what do you think about that? This idea that the governments, for some reason, rich people are only listening to rich people and privileged people are only listening to privileged people. What about, people might be like, Mike's getting super Marxist now. but I do think sometimes, like, why isn't the fact that a lot of children may lose out on food and actually have why isn't that what worries Boris Johnson? Why is it that, someone famous has lent their energy in, we better make a U-turn?
I feel that sort of boils down to, say, the current, economic systems we've got in place. So if we look at, say, capitalist structures, it's normally ascribed to this sort of zero-sum game where there'll always be winners and losers. So I feel from that perspective, that's why we have this sort of, say, winner and loser on say, systems or issues are sort of touched on in Parliament, but also on wider context as well. So with, say, the elite, if to use a better word, dictating, say, what goes on within society and sort of what should be correct and what should be wrong, it's a case where I do feel they have more, say, bargaining power. So I was watching Prime Minister's Questions or a debate in Parliament in which one of the politicians talked about the fact that she was gifted gifts from, say, massive corporations who sort of lobby for them in Parliament, and it's a case it sort of speaks true to, say, the current systems we've got in place, where it does serve, say, those who are privileged and sort of isolates and sort of alienates people.
There's actually a law against that, like these big corporations being able to, because let's say there's a very important vote on oil subsidies, and before you know it, the Saudi government has sent you a bouquet to your room, and you go, oh, this is so kind. He's so thoughtful. Really? Do you think that's what's going on? I'm sure there's, I don't know, I literally forgot. I have my mind's blank, but I'm sure there's like a law against that. But what else did she say?
She was actually advocating against it, actually saying that because all of a sudden you have these massive corporations sort of essentially she didn't use bribery, but again, it's you can look at it as a form of bribery, actually. They're actually effectively bribing you to help them lobby for, say, certain things to their advantage. So it's difficult to say that, yes, we should change things, but at the same time, what does need to happen is we need to have a restructural, say, look at, say, how do we ensure that, say, these things don't happen? Because quite frankly, even though you may say that, you're not being bribed, subconsciously there is some sort of favoritism
we all
going
know what's going on. I mean, come on. The minute you get into government, you just start getting gifts from random people, and literally those gifts aren't even to be like, vote in the right way. It's just to get you thinking about them. That's another thing they want to do. I've been mentored by an MP who's spoken to me about this. I don't say his name, but extensively about just receiving random gifts. Hey John, checking your mail, and you're like, what? Like, why are people suddenly giving me gifts? I can give you a guess, because you're now in government. And they want you to think about them. But it got me thinking, this idea of the government listening to rich people. I thought this must be such a problem, because there's a narrative, isn't there? There's a political class, and I sound like Nigel Farage here. We've got a political class that's educated in certain institutions, and they've forgotten people. And is this why Jeremy Corbyn saw such a massive blow, the biggest defeat since 1973? Because people go, we're tired of of politics, full stop. And so, I have a friend who was writing about this, that maybe the vote for the Conservatives, and giving them the largest majority they've had in donkey's years, was almost a protest vote against the political class. Now, he goes through a number of different hurdles to make that point, because obviously you're voting for the Tories, which aren't necessarily, I mean, that's never been a protest vote. But at least doing Brexit, does it send Labour a message that you need to get your act together, man? Because right now, like, your core constituents don't feel heard in Manchester, in the middle of the country, Middle England, where typically, I mean, Labour heartlands, they just don't feel heard anymore, because you've got this weird Westminster bubble. The people, I mean, I look at Sir Keir Starmer now, and obviously we're talking about him doing the knee thing. Was it last episode? I forgot when it was, when he said that he took a knee, but he said that, no, it wasn't him, it was Dominic Raab, sorry. No, he said, Keir Starmer said that what did he say again? The Black Lives Matter movement was a moment. And he came back and said, oh, actually, he didn't mean that. I was like, give me a break. But on this topic, though, I just remembered now. Let's listen to Aramide, who, again, works with us at the Commentators Network. Here's what she had to say about this whole celebrity culture thing.
Although it is quite admirable when celebrities use their platform to speak on societal issues, it does raise quite a few problems, especially in the sense of the celebrities will then quickly become poster boys for a cause that they have little to do with, or causes that they don't experience, or causes that have very little to do with them as people, which then goes to cheapen the experience of the victims. And not just cheapen it, but also trivializes everything, because as much as someone can sympathize with you, they can't understand your pain. And if they are the poster boy or the people championing change in that area, then they really have nothing to fall back on in terms of experience. But also, it seems that rich people only ever listen to rich people. But why is it that why is it that governments don't really listen to the voice of the people, but they listen to the voices of celebrities? Isn't that a problem?
That's really interesting stuff there. That's Aramide talking us through celebrities being poster boys for issues that they don't really care about, or quite frankly, just distracting us from the actual problems. Now we're getting caught up in them. What do you think about that?
I'm quite torn, because she touches on a point of saying that, these celebrities are sort of championing causes they don't care about or they don't experience. And to sort of put my philosophical hat on here, I understand where she's coming from, because they may not necessarily empathize or really understand the topic, but if they feel an inkling towards what is right, and say, for example, let's use the recent examples of, say, Black Lives Matter movement, and say celebrities who may not be deemed, say, black, sort of championing and saying that, yes, we should be advocating for change within society, just because they may not necessarily experience what it's like to be black.
Yeah,
that doesn't mean they shouldn't be lobbying for change. So I feel that it's I understand what she's saying, but at the same time, I feel celebrities hold such a powerful position to platform what is right. And you can even go into lots of other debates of arguing about what is right. But again, I do feel that celebrities hold a very important position within society.
Yeah,
for that.
Well, that's undeniable. I mean, but again, there's two examples we can actually think about relating to what you just said. I mean, if we think about J.K. Rowling and the whole trans debate, that's been a very unhelpful interjection.
Yeah.
For some reason, she keeps tweeting about trans people, and it's just like, what's your beef? Like, no, this is just unhelpful.
Yeah.
Two major Harry Potter stars distanced themselves from her. She just doubled down on what she said. Now the Independent carried that story. And a part of me just thinks, just stop. I haven't read much into the story, but it's interesting to see her going back and forth in a clearly unhelpful way. I don't think that's adding much. And it was quite random. She's often had traditional views about kind of, which is odd from someone who's a fantasy writer. I mean, sure, you can imagine what trans people go through. Anyways, the second thing, though, is take someone like Meghan Markle and Prince Harry. What we've seen there is, I mean, the reason why I think the interview that we did will be received quite well is because they're people who have a history of aligning themselves with social causes that push equality. I mean, Meghan Markle, before she even stepped into the royal family, was a UN, I believe, ambassador on equality or women's education. She's someone who's always been kind of keeping that same energy. So now that's just talking about the need to dismantle systems. I mean, many people would say that's something she knows well. Like she's been talking about that for a long time. Yeah. So I think with someone like that, there's a clear consistency there in the way she acts, and I guess makes her statements a bit easier to receive. But I think Aramide is totally correct, especially when it comes to people who don't really care. They just signed the petition. They just added their name to it. Well, and for me, I think there's something quite disingenuous about that. When you don't really care, but it's a good thing to align yourself with, so you just drop your name in the hat, and that's that.
Well, I don't know, because I'm still quite torn, because say I look at the example of say one of the NFL players called Drew Brees. He initially made a statement saying that he didn't support say the Black Lives Matter movement, but then later retracted his statement saying, actually, think about it, I actually do support it.
Thanks, Drew. After you thought about it, you thought, you know what? Yeah, Black lives do matter, actually.
But with that, it's a case where I am of the inclination that people can change, and people, given that they actually understand the issues and actually go about a learning process to fully understand the issues, if their views change, then I'm very much for that. So in the example of Drew Brees, my personal opinion is I felt he faced a warlocking from say social media, hence why he maybe changed his position on it. But again, it's a step in the right direction here. It may be a very small step, but again, it's about understanding these different perspectives and allowing people to really understand and educate themselves on these issues.
Yeah. Well, yeah, no, I hear that about change, but in this situation, I'm just saying they should care. So people can change their minds. We're advocates of that here. I mean, we talked about it a lot of times when people are like, I used to be this now. Like, cool, but you need to care. Like, you need to be seen to. Essentially, your words should be congruent with your actions. Show us that this is a fight you're in for the long haul. And I think there people will believe you more. That's one of the things I try to share is that, why people often ask how do I be a good ally? How do I be a good ally? And in the video I spoke about, the first thing to do is to just be humble. Because when you're humble, you approach this conversation with a sense of, I may not know the answer. If you've already made up the answer in your head and you're just doing this to appease people, that's already wrong, right? But the first thing you actually have to do is resist the impulse of performative allyship, and that's when you do things like sharing tweets or telling all your friends all the books you're reading, essentially doing things for social applause and social clout. Rather than doing that, you actually have to do the work. And the work is a lot more long-term. You've got to keep that same energy. Oh my God, we need to talk about racism. Good. So you better make sure you keep having that conversation about racism like forever. You've got to keep on dismantling the systems. So for me, that's more where I'm at, is whatever you're going to do, just keep doing it. Don't just do a one-time thing. So I hope Marcus Rashford doesn't now just go, well, that kid's solved. It's like, no, bro. If you're in this fight, there's other things that you need to do as well. And I hope all these guys, Lewis Hamilton, all these people coming out and speaking, John Boyega, let's start seeing some structural changes, and let's see you march for it. Of course, let's be honest though, they're not always going to do this online. A lot of it will be offline as well, and we have to give people that benefit of the doubt. But yeah, go ahead. What are you going to say?
I definitely support what you're saying as well. I agree that this discussion, these discussions must be had by celebrities, but also everyday people as well, normal everyday people, because it's not just say the celebrities or people within power that may have say skewed views on these issues. It's people like, well, not people like us, but people that are of a normal background, and we need to continue to have these conversations with other people and to again get different perspectives, and that's what we do here at the TCS Network.
Wonderful plug at the end. Well, listen, folks, that's your lot today. It was only a short episode, but thanks to Mubarak for coming in and for discussing with us. Mubarak's work can be found in the Commentators Network. Like I said, we've got a YouTube channel, TCS, the Commentators Network, and you can watch videos, subscribe. The Editor's Desk is coming out very soon. I hope there's one out this week, but there's going to be some great episodes coming out, just breaking down the news, interesting topics to you. If you haven't done so, please do subscribe to this podcast, like it, follow it, share it with a friend mind, we're on a mission to grow to over 2,000 listeners. So please share this with somebody. And if you haven't done so, you can actually share this on Instagram or Twitter by just clicking the share button. You can do it right now on social media. The hashtag is LTCS. And the last thing is we've started social media pages, LTCS podcast, that stands for Let's Talk Common Sense, on Instagram or Twitter, and you can find out when new episodes come out, but also engage with us. We have a number of questions we want to ask. And if you're listening to this, we want to get your thoughts as well. So DM us on Instagram or Twitter. Let us know what you think. What do you think? Should celebrities be driving social change? Should we just say no? Do we need to get rid of this celebrity culture? I would love to know your thoughts. So as ever, you can find me online, and we hope you'll keep listening to this podcast. See you on the next one. Thank you, Mubarak.
Thank you, Mike.